Here at Vinyl Community Podcasts, we strongly encourage you to use protection for your pleasure. Talking about sleeving your records, inner sleeves, outer sleeves, your listening pleasure, get your mind out of the gutter. Now, stay tuned to Vinyl Community Podcasts.
All right, buddies. Thank you. We are back in the building. We've got this is a special project and a special presentation for Vinyl Community Podcasts in the sense that I found some folks in the vinyl community who some I knew were Kiss fans, very open about their Kissdom. Yes. And some that I had no clue were Kiss fans, but through the power of the community and the power of some of these conversations I've been having through Vinyl Community Podcasts, they rose to the surface. And to coincide with the last tour, which we'll get into in a little bit, I thought it'd be a great conversation piece to do here, there, everywhere. I don't. We still got to work out frequency of how often we'll get together and talk about it. But I really wanted to learn more about Kiss, and so I wanted to bring Kiss fans, some probably in the Kiss Army, like Felipe, which we'll get to, but just wanted to learn. So I brought together some really good guys. We'll kick it off with Dylan, the record spinner. I think this was probably the kickoff point for me having this idea of talking Kiss, learning Kiss. I actually bought Kiss tickets for the first time because if this is the last tour, I'm ready. I had a hookup. Travis, who is a great friend, and Brandon knows him from Billy's shop. He actually may have let me sneak under the fence of the Kiss Army outpost so I could use one of those pre-sale codes to kind of get in and get tickets. So I will be going in October. But so Dylan, the record spinner, how you doing today, sir?
I am doing fantastic. Great to be here amongst you guys.
Awesome. And then Brandon, good friend of mine, local. I mean, if you've seen any pictures or any kind of video representation of Brandon's collection, one thing that always peeks through is that lower restroom, bathroom area, and you've got the Kiss. It's from what album is that from? The Kiss.
It's a Destroyer.
Destroyer shower curtain. What a conversation piece! Not only when you walk into Brandon's record room, is there just so much, but then you need to break away from that. It's just overwhelming. Can I relieve myself in peace? And you go in to the restroom, and there is Kiss Destroyer just right up on you. So Brandon, thanks for joining us. Felipe, one of the jazz bums. Surprise, big Kiss fan. How you doing, Felipe?
I'm doing good. Chance, thanks for having me. Starting the discussion here. Hopefully, we can make more of those.
Absolutely.
And, Kiss fans are everywhere, right? So there's no way around it.
So you're saying like tax accountants?
Yeah, like
they're everywhere.
Yeah.
And then rounding out the dais is my good friend Arnado from Fidelios_frequency on YouTube, who again, through just organic conversations, come to find out that Arnaldo is. Are you officially in the Kiss Army, Arnaldo?
No, I am no longer in the Kiss Army. I was for a brief period in my adult years, not in my younger years, but I am no longer in the Kiss Army.
Was it an honorable discharge?
Absolutely. I think it just expired. Again, I think it was because I want to say it was for the pre-sale of one of the tours that I joined for, a code or something in order to purchase the tickets. So I was in for about a year, got a couple of goodies out of it. Okay. Nowhere near what they used to give out back in the 70s. But yes, I'm no longer in, sadly.
So what you're telling me is the Kiss coffin is no longer on order. Is that confirm or deny?
No, and I don't even know if it's in production. Is it? Dylan, do you know if it is?
So there was two different types. There was the original one from 2002, and then they did another line in the early 2010s. Maybe somewhere out there. I think there's a manufacturer somewhere in the Midwest, I believe, because that's the last I saw based on my research.
Always blame the Midwest, Dylan. I see how you are.
I'm just saying.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you all joining me for this project, and I think it'll be a lot of fun because, like I said, I am the uninitiated. My history, and we'll kind of kick it off with that, like the origins of of where your passion for this band came from youth, from a tour, from whatever. I'll just kind of kick it off because since I'm probably the least, and I would say least, but I'm the least indoctrined of the Kiss fans here, I would say that I remember when I was a little kid, my brother was into Kiss, and that was my first exposure into the band at all. And you know, the live performance and the music and the fire breathing demon. I remember that as a little kid. I think I was still wearing them baby pull-ups when I remember seeing some of the video from MTV and all that kind of stuff. So obviously one of the biggest bands in the world, and we'll kind of touch on that too, in terms of their exposure and their range and the depth of their fandom. But Brandon, let's kick it off with you. Like, how did you learn about Kiss, and what are some of your earliest memories as you were getting to learn about the band?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I think with Kiss, you know, being around so much and with all the marketing and everything, it was I actually discovered Kiss in different stages and different ages of my life. So like my very first memories of Kiss is back when I was, I don't know, 5 years old, 6 years old. And a friend that lived in the apartment complex that we were in had those Kiss dolls, like those 13-inch Kiss dolls. I had never heard the music, didn't even know they were a band, so to speak, or whatever else, but I was just completely blown away by those things. And we would, you know, play with them and fight them and blah, blah, blah. And I just knew these were the coolest things in the world. No idea about the music or anything. So I really didn't hear Kiss until kind of the 80s came along. Because again, it wasn't until I was in maybe right about junior high when I actually first got introduced to rock music, period. You know, I'm talking Zeppelin, Aerosmith, like everything. So Kiss just kind of swooped in with the 80s stuff with Asylum and, you know, Tears Are Falling and all of that. And that was my first experience of actually hearing Kiss and thinking, you know, I like this music and I really like this stuff. And so yeah, just between the image that they put off in the very beginning, I'd known them for a good 5, 6, 7+ years before I even heard any of their
two and two together. Sure, makes sense. So Dylan, since you are the junior member of this dais, and I mean that respectfully, I would argue that you're probably the most knowledgeable about this band because it is your favorite band, right? Like, how did this love of Kiss start? When some would say generationally, you're very far removed from that their wheelhouse of when they're like red hot in the 70s and so forth.
So for myself, growing up as a kid, my parents had VH1 on all the time when I was growing up. Back when VH1 was quality music entertainment.
Nice.
And at the time in 2000, I was only at the early part of the year. I was 2 years old. VH1 was the sponsor for the farewell tour. I say that in quotations, but we'll go on.
Yeah, we'll come to that.
Yeah. And they would always run daily segments on the tour as it progressed around the country. And I just remember always seeing it. And they just stood out for me because, keep in mind, at the time, and this is what I remember specifically, some of the notable big hits of the time, there was like Red Hot Chili Peppers' Californication, that Rob Thomas Santana collaboration, like that was what was dominating the scene then. And then Kiss comes on with, you know, the makeup, the outfits, and the music, which they just stood out completely from everything else that I was subjected to. And at the end of the day, like the image and everything was cool. I mean, I will say, like, early on when I was young and I saw Gene Simmons spit blood, I was scared shitless. Like that was the scariest thing I ever saw. But the music is what got to me. And people, you know, can dog Kiss all they want when it comes to like musical ability or the lyrical subject matter. But there are some great hooks in that music that make it so memorable and easy to listen to. And it's so anthemic. And it just gravitated me entirely. So I want to say roughly ever since summerish of 2000, I have been a Kiss Army soldier, and I've never looked back since.
Was it a particular song, or was it just the total presentation? Like you said, it was a lot different than the music that was kind of out in popular culture at the time.
So honestly, like most fans, I mean, it's newer fans, I would say maybe of my generation, it was Rock and Roll All Night.
Yeah.
That was the song that sold me. I remember I had it was on a compilation that I had on CD called Greatest Kiss. But because when it comes to fandom, it's very scientific. I don't like to count compilations, but the first Kiss album that I ever received was a cassette copy of Love Gun, and it was just off to the races.
That was my first record too.
That's awesome. So good.
Well, Felipe, let's learn about, because again, I think people who are only knowing you in the vinyl community from jazz bums are probably picking themselves off the floor, or they've pulled over to the side of the road hearing this podcast because they cannot believe that Felipe, are you in the KISS Army?
Oh yeah, I'm in the KISS Army. Yeah, for sure.
Full-fledged lieutenant? Are you a lieutenant or a sergeant? Like,
no, just
KISS Army.
I'm just a pawn.
So you're infantry. You're infantry. Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
I'm giving blood. I'm giving blood. So my whole thing with KISS, I mean, because of my age, I got into KISS like 4 or 5, and mostly again, as Brandon said, because of the other figures, the whole thing. So when I was that age, was 82. Everybody knows about those 82 KISS concerts in Brazil, right?
Of course.
I mean,
Rio.
There's no arenas in Brazil, so everything there is a stadium. There's not a show in Brazil like a metal show, like there's like 100,000 people in a stadium. So it's wild. So the whole country was talking about them, and we didn't have MTV back there till like 91. So everything was like major network, like sporadic video clip shows here, shows there. So, and KISS was like scary for like a 5-year-old kid. Was like scary. But I remember from those days listening to Creatures of the Night. I mean, they would have on TV all the time. I Love It Loud. Even like a little later, Heaven's on Fire was a melody that really caught up. But then 80s passed, and then Guns N' Roses and Bon Jovi. It just forgot about KISS in a while. And I remember there was like 91 when they're coming back with Revenge. And I saw that video that God Gave Rock and Roll to You too. And all those like backing images from the 70s, from the early 80s, that felt so nostalgic, so connecting. And Alive Tree was coming out, was about to come out. So I never heard of KISS again. And they also, oh my God, Alive Tree is coming. So that was very connecting. And then I started going to record fairs on the weekends. I mean, 80s, 90s, everybody just dumping their vinyl. So I bought my first 2 KISS records. I remember to this day. Love Gun, the original Brazilian pressing.
Wow.
And then I bought a record that's not very common here in the US, and I brought you guys for you to see.
Beautiful.
Now, hang on. I'm gonna try to think. Is that a German pressing?
No.
Oh, I thought dang it.
There is a German. They only German in South America. So the German one has the German lettering.
See, I'm trying, guys. I'm really trying.
And I really like. I mean, the record's a little bit overproduced. They changed the sound a lot, but at least to me, I'm a Legend Tonight, man. That song is so good.
Hell yeah.
So good. That drum kicking. And that's how I got back into KISS. And then I started going after everything. And I even bought Alive Tree was my first CD, because they didn't put out as a record immediately, because in the 90s South America they're just pressing records for everything.
Yeah.
So there was not a Alive Tree. So I bought a CD before I had a CD player, just to push my dad to buy my CD player. And then a few years later, they came with a single disc version of Alive Tree. It looked like a Ramones record. Every track was like so tiny.
Yeah.
But that's how it started. And to this day, man, I think things that speak it to the heart, you just have to go with them and enjoy.
That makes sense. Now, Arnaldo.
Yeah.
Again, another surprising revelation that, like I know you're big into the Smiths and you have a very, your taste is very eclectic in a lot of ways. But KISS, this it took me aback, not in a bad way, but I was like, okay. So tell me more. So how did this? I mean, is it similar to kind of what the fellows have kind of kicked off? Did it start at an early age? Like, how did that start for you?
Well, I think I'm the oldest among the panel.
We better not draw straws, because I think I know the ages.
And I was 8 in the summer of '76, so you can figure out when I was born. And there were 3 guys. It was 3 of us in my neighborhood that were of the same age, like within the same block. And one of us had a KISS record, which I believe he got turned on to by his older sister, and it was Destroyer. And of course, I liked the music. I would hear I believe it was at the time the radio was playing Beth. And then that album cover, I was like, wow, this is so cool. But I was so like taken by the music that like, because that whole intro to Detroit Rock City, when we would listen to it at his house, we were imagining this kid, this guy who was going to a Kiss show, you know, starting his car and then ending up in a car accident. So that whole visual imagery attached to the music, not only the characters, you know, their costumes and their makeup, but also the imagery of the music spoke to me, because right after that is King of the Nighttime World and then God of Thunder. So all of that, they were very visual characters that I could relate to, right? Because you know how usually kids relate to, you know, images and visuals probably a little bit more than to sound. I don't know. I guess usually you start teaching kids about colors and stuff like that, how to identify them. So I guess maybe that's what attracted me a lot. And it had to have been in between Destroyer and Rock and Roll Over, or right before Rock and Roll Over came out. And my first record was Destroyer. So all the way then Rock and Roll Over, and then Love Gun when it came out, and then the Alive 2. In between, I think the very first record that I bought with my money, saving up, you know, the quarters and dollars from, you know, either mowing someone's lawn or something like that, was Alive 2, because I had to go backwards since I came into Destroyer. Then I had to start going backwards, and Alive 2 was the very first record that I bought with my own money. Of course, all the other records were, you know, bought by my parents. I remember going to Corvettes and just like while they were shopping around. Do you guys remember Corvettes?
I'm assuming it's a record store, a music
No,
store.
it's a department store.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of like a Kmart. It was kind of like a Kmart. And while my mom was shopping, you know, in the women's section or whatever she was doing, it was a time when your parents could leave you roam around.
I remember. I used to go grocery shopping. I go to the magazines because the last thing I wanted to do is hang out in the bread and produce aisle.
Exactly. So back then, you could leave your child roam around the store. And I'd wander off to the record section because this store had a record section, and I'd always gravitate towards that Originals album.
Yeah.
That I was like, wow, I could get all three of them all in one shot. But it was so expensive at the time. So eventually I ended up buying the single albums, and only like maybe 15 years ago, I ended up buying Originals.
Cool.
So yeah, I was through the whole, you know, buying posters and having them in my room. Actually, the poster, the shirt you're wearing, Dylan, that's from the Spirit of 76.
Yes.
Yeah. I have a slightly different shot, but in that same series, that was hanging in my bedroom wall.
Phenomenal.
So yeah, me and my buddies, we were all about Kiss. We were all on the same page. And of course, I bought the dolls, Double Platinum, which came out around the same time. It was actually that came out right before I moved to Italy, because I was living in Philly at the time. Then my family moved to Italy, and the first thing that I wanted to get were the solo albums in 1978, and the record store was right downstairs from where my apartment was. Had them all on display. In the window, and you know, I had to have my dad send them over from the States, which they never came, and I had to wait like 8 months before getting them. Drama. I won't get into that. I was in tears when I didn't receive them in the package, but eventually I got them, and yeah, and followed through all the way until Unmasked. No, actually, The Elder. When Creatures of the Night came out, I was on the fence. My tastes were already changing. By that time, I had discovered Roxy Music. My musical taste had become a little bit more refined. Not to say that Kiss can't, I'm not knocking them for, being like that. Yeah, and I was on the fence, and that's the first record I didn't buy, where I diverted my hard-earned, allowance or whatever to buying something else. And then they took off the mask, and it was like, what? And then my interest started lower, it started decreasing quite a bit until they got into the whole hair metal phase, which I wasn't vibing with a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And then it all came back when Psycho Circus. By that time, I had moved back to the States, and the reunion tour was in full gear. Psycho Circus comes out, and I finally got to see Kiss in '96 on the reunion tour at Madison Square Garden.
Wow.
It was like my 10-year-old dream come true.
You stepped into your true self, Arnado.
It was like nothing changed, because the 77 show was the set list that you wanted to see.
Yeah.
And that's basically what they performed. There was I think they did do New York Groove during that tour. I think that's the only solo song that they were doing.
Yeah.
But it was basically the entire, I believe even the stage set was the 77 stage set.
I think they were, yeah. Man, I remember when they got back on that Unplugged, it was like, dude, I can't believe it. I was like,
yeah, well, actually, I stand corrected. It was the Kiss Regrooved that piqued my interest again. I got that CD and I was like, wow, these guys did a really good job with the Kiss songs. And then I'm not sure if it was around the same time of the Unplugged show.
Yeah, I think like 94, I think.
Yeah, 94.
And Regrooved came out when?
Well, Regroove was 94, Unplugged was 95.
Okay, yeah, I know they were around the same time.
Yeah,
and I moved back to the States in '96. So
yeah, that record is great. I think the Lemonheads did a really great cover of Kiss in that Kiss Regrouped.
Has a lot of great covers like that. The Garth Brooks is the best.
Hands
is
down,
the best person to sing "Hard Luck Woman." Lenny Kravitz's "Deuce" is an amazing cover.
Really good too with Stevie Wonder.
Yeah.
So they went to Brazil in '99 with that tour. So it was already Psycho Circus, and it was pretty awesome. It was like in a racetrack. So go figure. Hammerstein, that German band, opened for them.
I don't know. Well,
did they also do Rock in Rio?
Kiss? No, they never.
No.
Well, before we move to the next topic, I did want to ask you guys, since you guys, I'm leaning on you for this Kiss stuff. All of you kind of said about the merchandising, and I don't want to get too deep into that piece, but about the dolls in particular. Was that, I mean, I know that Kiss kind of came up, particularly like with the Star Wars and the merchant, like it was all kind of a concerted effort across music and movies and so forth to have pieces of whatever the art was you could take with you, right? Like, was that something that the band did intentionally to try to hook children to enjoy the music, or was that just a Gene thing to make money? Like, what do you guys know about that, if anything?
So that was kind of later, around the time of Destroyer. That was when there was the shift to where it was originally this band from New York, leather clad studs, kabuki makeup. It was afterwards that they started to market them as the superheroes, and that's how the Marvel comic book kind of came about. Yeah. So around that time, that's when it started to shift into heavy territory. And of course, manager Bill Coyne was a mastermind at marketing the band to great extremes. I mean, my God, to be a kid in '77 and to say that you have a comic book of your favorite band and their own blood is in the red ink, I mean, it builds that genuine connection, which is where, with all the dolls and the action figures, it's like you're buying a piece of them and you get to take it home with you. It's an interaction, it's a connection that can't be repeated by anyone else.
No, it's awesome. I appreciate that. So let's talk about, Dylan, you said this earlier about the, and again, use quotation marks, and I used it in our little warm up too, about, one of the reasons I felt it was a good time to have these conversations and for me to learn more about Kiss is, like I said, I'm going to my first Kiss show this weekend, or not this weekend, this year. Sorry, not this weekend. Surprise. But later this year. Right. And so, it's obviously being billed as the last tour and all that kind of stuff. But as, history has proven, last tour is, some interesting words play, right? So I guess the first question is, on this last tour, do you guys really feel this is the last tour, and why is that?
100% it is. Just to kind of go back to the starting point with how I said farewell tour from 2000, this is factual. When Ace and Peter rejoined in 96, I mean, first off, they were employees to Gene and Paul, and they signed a 5-year contract. So how convenient from 96 when they first got back together, run it to about, they did the reunion tour, Psycho Circus, then they do a farewell tour, contract wraps up in 2001, prime time, sort of. But obviously, as history would show, they signed back on, they were very, compliant to, Gene and Paul, but then they wanted to become equals. And to be fair, and this isn't me downing Ace and Peter whatsoever, but at the end of the day, when you have guys like Gene and Paul who were manning the ship for, let's say, 15 years, since everything kind of imploded, they have been waving the flag. So it is theirs. And ultimately, they sold off the makeup, Ace and Peter, but we're not going to talk about that. So, in hindsight, when you look back at like all the press stuff from like, interviews and things, they made it convincing that this was going to be it. And then, after the U.S. leg, they brought Eric Singer into the fold wearing the Catman makeup, and then Ace had enough. And then there was just this weird period where it's like, where do they stand? And then obviously with Tommy Thayer and both him and Eric Singer in the fold, I mean, the band's on fire for the past, 15 odd years or so. Yeah. But I think right now, age is catching up to them. And, I can only imagine it's tough doing a show at that caliber with, the armor and everything for 2 hours. It's got to take a toll. And I think, ultimately Paul has been doing his Soul Station side project with all like the Motown soul covers, which is fantastic. He wants to do that. And then Gene is flaunting off his Vault box set. Everyone's just kind of, it seems like the agendas are pretty much full for once this is done. And, I think in terms of the production, this tour is by far the biggest and most extravagant and the most impressive show that I think perhaps, if you think about it in terms of the modern standards of live performance, it's state of the art.
Have you guys seen any concert in this tour?
I've seen it twice so far. I saw it in Philly in 2019. Then I saw it in Atlantic City in 2021. And then later this year, I'm actually flying out to LA to see them at the Hollywood Bowl. And then I am going to the final show at the Garden.
Yeah, I saw the 19 to the very early tour when they went here to Tampa. It was really good. They put a really good show. Then I saw 21 when they resumed the tour. Another show here in Tampa. It was really good. I think they're kind of perfecting, making it a little better.
Yeah.
Do you guys think that, because obviously being the last tour, I keep using it. I'm probably not even saying how they branded it, but do you think there's a sense that they'll still do one-offs or even Vegas residencies? Because, I mean, if the money's there, I mean, money talks and bullshit walks, right? And I have a hard time. To your point, Dylan, I understand, like, the touring and the grind and the night after night of doing such a very, from my understanding, a very physical and intense and very, calculated performance night after night, even if you have a night off or even if you take every other week off, kind of like Metallica does now. But I would still think that maybe the residencies would be an option. What do you guys think about that? I mean, I know nothing. I'm very clear.
I mean, just talking about it from just a human nature standpoint, not necessarily knowing all the history and the side projects and things of that nature. I just think it's very tough for anyone to do something with the passion that, most big bands like that have for 10, 20, 30 plus years. And then when you're in the midst of it, I'm worn out. I'm ready to kind of kick back and call it quits. But then once you step away, it's like my entire identity just got stripped from me. So anytime I hear any major band, whether it's Crew, whether it's Kiss or whatever else, say this is it. Yeah, it's it until you're sitting at home and you're not it anymore.
That's right. And you need that, because they say it's like a drug, right? That degree of attention. And you said it really well there, Brandon. Your identity is so aligned with what you do and how you do it and for how long you've doing it. So that's why I hear this is the last tour, but I also in the back of my mind think that doesn't necessarily mean this is their last performance. Maybe it's their last performance at Madison Square Garden, but is this the Kiss last performance? I shrug my shoulders. Arnaldo, what do you say?
Maybe this is the last tour, but I'm not excluding the possibility of them doing short Vegas runs.
Someone else.
Right.
especially like you said, there's no traveling. People come to see you.
Yes.
You can set your schedule for 3 or 4 shows and then be off for another week or whatever. That, I mean, U2 is doing a residency. Everyone's doing a residency now at this point. Even older artists. I mean, Kiss are approaching 70, right?
Yeah.
Oh no, they're past. I mean,
Gene is
almost 80, I think, right?
No way, really? Okay. I thought he was like 70. He was the oldest. I think he was like 72, maybe.
I mean, I know that he's older than my parents, and my parents like 73.
He's 70, 72, 73-ish, I think.
Yeah, in that range.
73, I think.
Yeah. So to your point, Chance,
I googled it. 73.
I see my dad how hard it is to go up and down the stairs here at the house. I mean, imagine those guys like playing a gig.
Well, and did I not see recently, maybe it was a month ago, recently to me, didn't Gene have like a medical thing that
He had to sit out a couple songs, yeah.
Right. So yeah, Father Time's undefeated, as they say.
Right.
And even if you're immortal like Kiss is, I think that.
I mean, I don't know. I think it's possible. I mean, I wouldn't write it off, but probably it is their last tour. Of like traveling around, but maybe a residency would not be off the books.
So Dylan, since you're so invested in this last Madison Square Garden show, on a scale of 1 to 10, how irritated would you be if in like 2 or 3 years, one night only, back at the Garden, here's Kiss? Like, would that bother you? Because part of why you're super pumped about getting these tickets is this is it. This is the last time at one of the most famous arenas in the world.
I would probably go these mother and then go to Ticketmaster.com. I mean, honestly, there's no real way of telling how I would feel. I mean, because ultimately, in terms of like, because I do think like the Vegas residency card is totally in their deck because this is not being marketed as the final show ever. This is the final tour ever.
Yes.
But I do think there is going to be a little bit of poignancy to see them, at this grand extreme of them just constantly grinding across the country, across the world for that matter. They've talked about it briefly. I don't know how I would feel about it, about like a Kiss 2.0. Type group where they would have like an official tribute band basically go around under the banner. And at the end of the day, I mean, all they have to do is just sell the show. And then, in terms of the merchandising, they can still generate whatever and they'll reap all the benefits. I mean, there's no real way of telling what they'll possibly do, but, the entity itself will continue in some form.
Yeah.
Makes sense. How many concerts have you guys each went to respectively? Can I ask that question?
With Kiss?
Yes.
I've seen them twice.
I'm 4.
Dylan, do you have enough digits?
Hold on. Give me like 5 seconds. I'm like going back inside.
Arnaldo, how many times have you seen the band?
3 times.
3 times? Okay.
So not counting the 2 times I'm going to see them later this year, so far I've seen them 8 times.
8 times. Okay. So, Felipe, you kind of made an interesting point, and it wasn't part of my original rundown, but I was fascinated. I'm hoping you can expand here. Talking about your passion for this band and why you enjoy them. You made a comment that Kiss is more important. I mean, I don't want to misquote you. Kiss is how do you feel Kiss compared to, say, legacy bands like the Stones and Beatles? Because I don't want to put words in your mouth. It was a very, very direct comment. Elaborate, please, sir.
No, I think it's different, Chance. Like, I think the Stones and Kiss are the bands that I listened to the most when I grew up. I mean, all those records that came out in the mono box, I knew them like back to back. I still know them. I love that stuff. But I think Kiss came even earlier, right? And I think it has a lot to do with the imagery, as Arnado said. And the songs are great too. I mean, they're great writers and music players. So I think like deep inside the heart, I mean, I think probably Kiss is my favorite. I would say I'll put him. I'm not talking about quality or this or that. No, just
but to you, they stand head and shoulders. Right?
Yeah, I think Kiss would be, and then no problem about it. I truly love them.
Yeah, so to be clear, if you're hearing this and you've just pulled your car in a ditch, Felipe did not say that the band is better than the Stones, better than the Beatles, but I think it's an interesting take nonetheless because I think that speaking to what is vital to you and important to you, passionate to you is one thing versus like because anytime, and I know we get in, you know, we're definitely a generation, or at least in the vinyl community, there's a lot of videos about lists and rankings and so on and so forth, which can be polarizing, even when, say, publications like Rolling Stone, like 100 greatest guitar players. I mean, I think by nature, those things are evoke emotion and evoke sentiment, but I totally understand like where you're coming from, Felipe, because I think that, you know, what it means to you is only to you.
Yeah.
And it's speaking your truth, right? So I can appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, probably Kiss. I mean, I wouldn't be so much into music if it wasn't for Kiss, I think.
So, Felipe, I have to call you out now.
Uh-oh.
I can see behind you in your shelf, I see 2 Beatles boxes, one Rolling Stone box, and one Kiss box.
There's a Kiss, the singles there, the Stones 7 inches, the Beatles 7 inches, and that is the Beatles mono.
The mono box, yeah. I could see the Kiss singles box. I can't tell if that's the CD or the 7-inch one.
That's a 7-inch. That's a 7-inch. Oh yeah, I had to get them.
Yeah, I have both. I have both the CD single and the 7-inch single box.
Yeah, those are good. Cool. Have you guys ever seen this one? This is my Destroyer. This is a Brazilian original with the original label.
Oh, nice.
Beautiful.
So one thing they did there, I never figured. I tried to read about it. Do you know why they wiped off the credits here? Can you see it's all wiped?
Yeah, there's like a gap.
Yes.
Big.
Wow.
I never figured. You can see like almost like a Sharpie.
Yeah.
It's not an ERC pressing, but there's a Sharpie here.
Wow. Never knew that.
Yeah. So that's how it came. And if you look on Discogs, they look like this.
That's insane. Wow.
That's weird, right?
Probably because I think those are the drum credits, right? And Gibson and Pearl, that's what was wiped out, right?
Maybe, but all my other records, they have no issue there.
Well, guys, when we wrap up this presentation, weeks, months down the road, we're going to have that answer. I have a feeling that somebody listening is going to reveal that, like a Scooby-Doo villain. They're going to pull the lid off of that question right there. Mm-hmm. Too funny. Well, rounding third here, guys. The last thing I wanted to touch on for this inaugural voyage of this Kiss conversation is something that I thought would be interesting in the sense of, you guys really enjoy the band. You've already spoken to what it means to you and how you learned about the band, and again, separating personal choice versus professional polish versus songwriting chops. Taking all that kind of accoutrement out of it. Let's just go around the dais, and if you were to say Dylan's wearing his Kiss shirt and he's out in public and pumping gas, getting groceries, whatever it is, just life stuff, and somebody's like, "Hey man, nice shirt." "Oh, thanks." Like, why do you like Kiss? Like, how would you describe, like, for lack of a better word, elevator pitch of answering that question to somebody and wanting to express and potentially maybe inspire them to go on their own Kiss deep dive on their own? So Dylan, we'll start with you since I called you out
right on the spot. I was going to say go to one of the others so I can get an answer together.
Well, Brandon, we'll start with you though. We'll let Dylan click this first. If somebody came into the shop and you're wearing a Kiss something, right? Like you're Riverbend Records, Godfrey, Illinois, terrific record shop. If you're over at Riverbend and someone's like, "Hey man, I really like that shirt," or whatever, or like the song or whatever, something that's a gateway to have that conversation. Like, how would you express yourself in a limited time, being like, "Well, I really like Kiss because of this"?
I mean, I would probably say that I think Kiss. I like Kiss the way that I do because they're one of the purest things in my vision of rock and roll. And what I mean by that is, I mean, obviously I grew up in the 80s and I love the 80s because it was bright. It was colorful. It was, even if you were hip hop,
character driven, right? Yeah.
Right. And like you could be a hip hop artist in the 80s. It was okay to smile on your album cover. Like it was fine. But then like something happened in the 90s, which again, I love my grunge and my Soundgarden, Nirvana and everything else. But things just became really dark in the 90s. If you didn't look like you were ready to kill yourself or commit suicide, then all of a sudden you weren't,
on trend, right?
Right. So there was this intensity about the 90s that was fantastic. There was this bright, colorful thing about the 80s that was fantastic. And to me, Kiss is the one band that figured out how to put all that together I can be the demon. We can spit blood. We can spit fire. And you'll bring your 5-year-old kid to the front row with makeup, and you guys will have a blast. And you can dance to some of the songs. The songs can be just about rock and roll and just about, having a good time. And it's just crazy night. It's like, it's just this really, really pure mixture of all those elements of rock and roll in a very friendly way. So it's hard not to be into them on some level, no matter what type of music you like.
Arnaldo, how would you answer that question?
Well, both Dylan and Brandon said, probably are able to best represent, what your, the answer to your question. So I'm just going to add two things. Like, I don't think Kiss at this point needs any explaining. Because our license plate holder, it has Kiss Army on the top, the logo Kiss Army on the top. And we're driving on the highway, this is years ago, and a guy's pulling up next to us, and he's like motioning to us. I'm like, what the hell are we doing? And he's going like this. And I'm like, why would you do that? And then we kind of clicked, right? And then another cute story. One year we decided to do the Village parade in New York City. Not be in, but and you don't have to be in the parade. You can just dress up and hang out in the Village in New York on Halloween. And we decided to go as Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley. We couldn't find two other guys. So
and who did you choose? Paul?
I was Paul and Walter was Gene.
Walter, Gene, okay.
So apart from the fact that, dude, it is really hard to put on makeup. For the first time doing it, and we had cheap makeup. Walmart, they had the Kiss
watercolor,
like a starter pack or something. Oh,
yes, the Kiss makeup kit that year. So we buy that. We figured we're set. It's the right stuff. It was really bad, but it was really hard. When I say it was really bad quality, the quality of the makeup. No, it came out really nicely. Okay, good. Even for our first try, I think it came out really nicely. Of course, it's hard. Mine was pretty easy to do because it's only a star, but Gene's makeup was a little more intricate. So I had to help out a bit because if you're not comfortable in drawing on both sides, it can get a little off center. Yeah. So in any case, we dress up and I say, you know what? We're not going to be putting on or improvising any costume. We'll just go as Dress to Kill. So we both wore suits, had the wig, and we went out. As soon as we live in an elevator building, as soon as we left the elevator to leave the building, there were kids trick-or-treating in the lobby. I'm talking about like 8-year-olds. As soon as we got out of the elevator, they screamed, "Oh shit, it's Kiss." So I'm like, and you're thinking, and this was only like not even 10 years ago. So if I don't need to explain who Kiss is to a kid who had no idea 30 years ago, was not around, and they know who Kiss is. And then walking around the Village, I can't tell you how many people wanted to take pictures of us.
Awesome.
And it's really sad, but also funny that this is a small thing to say. They were asking us like, so one guy was asking, so where's Ace and Peter? And it's like, they're not here. And it's like, and the buddy that was next to him was like, no, nobody wants to be Peter Criss.
Oh,
that was
wow.
So yeah. So I don't know. I think at this point they have become so part of our culture.
Sure.
That for one reason or another, either you can recognize the makeup and remember, oh, it's them. Yeah. You may not be into the music, or the song. Even little kids nowadays who had no idea or not around, maybe they know it through their parents. I doubt it.
Because it transcends. The
parents were probably hipsters, so they're judging by their age. I don't even think they were kids when Kiss were around. But in any case.
Felipe, what do you think? What say you? If somebody comes into your dentist office and for whatever reason they've got a Kiss shirt on or something, like does that spoke a conversation in you? Like, oh, you like Kiss too? Like how would you kind of relate your passion to Kiss.
So just as a quick parenthesis here, you can cut that off later. I had a patient. She came a couple weeks ago. Her name is Aja, AJA, and it is because of Steely Dan.
Nice.
Oh, you were the first guy that knew where my name comes from.
That's funny.
But I think that they gave really good explanations. Again, Kiss for me is something that came like from really early age, and I think they have this amalgam dental office. This amalgam, this perfect combination there. The music is very simple, powerful, and really nice choruses and bridges. They really, really hooky, catchy. I think that the visual is very. I mean, imagine like for a young kid to see fire,
right? Blood,
all the makeup, the noise, the tongue, the blood. Man, this is so impactful. It's super cool, you know, to like this. And again, I think Arnado also defined quite well. They're already embedded. They're a part of the culture, music culture. I think they already been across generations, just like the Stones. If you go to a Stones concert, you see people from 5 to 95. It's crazy.
Yeah, but how many know the Beatles or the Stones, 8-year-old kids, and as soon as you see someone in makeup, they know already that's Kiss.
That's Kiss.
That's what really shocked me. It's like the visual has a really strong effect on anyone, you know, starting from children.
Sure.
Yes, it does. And I mean, a lot of people are doing that back in the early 70s, but they did the most successful way for sure.
That's true. Yeah, if you think about like the New York Dolls, you had a lot of bands, and even if you think about in the '80s, right, Glam and all the guys on the Sunset Strip and stuff. But yeah, I mean, Kiss is. I mean, definitely on the Mount Rushmore of using theatrics and makeup and presentation to also like hook you with the music.
Well, when it came to like actually presenting a visual show in addition to the music, I think Kiss were probably the pioneers at that.
Right.
Because you go to concerts to listen to music. Yeah, The Who brought in probably the most powerful sets and the biggest amplification of the times. But not until Kiss came around that you actually went to the show for the theatrics and also the visual component.
Yeah. You know, that reminds me, it's like a really quick story about just how that theatrics and just the imagery that they had with their album covers and everything. The first time I saw them, which might have been around 2000, I don't know, 17, somewhere in there. I don't remember exactly. But I remember doing the finale where, both the risers come up and then the drum set comes up and they have the 77 set. And I remember the first thing that came to my mind was I'm in the middle of the gatefold. It's like the Live 2 gatefold. And I could not stop thinking about that. And this is after I've known Kiss, how many years? I mean, I'm in my 40s at this point in time. But even just seeing that image from when the first time I saw that gatefold, it blew my mind. And it just something about the way they were able to make it stick. It just stayed with you forever.
All right. So, Dylan, we've went around the horn.
All right.
We gave you a time. You got your notes. You got your prowess. So how do you, in a short amount of time, in a short way, just express why Kiss is so awesome?
Just think of the letters. Keep it simple, stupid.
All right.
The music is as direct and to the point as you can possibly be. Like I was saying earlier, their stuff is full of so many hooks that make it so memorable and catchy. And look, it's basic meat and potatoes hard rock. And, that is the blueprint for a lot of my music taste. And that's why I love it. But for me, like, it's also a band. And I think this is the most crucial part. And I feel like maybe this is a given while you're a Kiss fan, because they give you this sense of empowerment. And I don't know about you guys, but I have taken pod shots for being a Kiss fan, because even like in the comment section of my videos, like I can go from talking about bands like Genesis and King Crimson, and then I go to Kiss, and everyone just loves to gang up on the fact that I'm a Kiss fan. And I think it's because of that, it's character forming, and it makes you feel like that's your band. And that's something that I retained all throughout my childhood years. And I would say more so as I've becoming an adult, passing the quarter life crisis period, the message of self-empowerment and believing in yourself has resonated with me so much at this point in my life that in a sense it almost makes me like, it's almost like rediscovering them all over again, and it like almost repeats the process, which is why I feel like, especially in the last several years, between seeing the couple of shows so far from the End of the Road tour and covering all the video leaks that came out last summer, it just made me love the band once again, like I did when I was a kid. And I wouldn't say like that meant that my fandom like tapered over the years, because, you know, that was what I lived and breathed from childhood. And then as I got older, I got into things like Pink Floyd, the Beach Boys, Pet Sounds. My musical palette broadened. But then at the end of the day, you know, I can say, like when I saw Mr. Speed last night, the 5-year-old in me came to life again. And that's, you know, when I listen to the music, when I watch the concert films, when I see a show or a tribute band, that is what gives me that feeling. And it keeps the kid in me vibrant.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, guys, I think we've come to the end of my presentation for this inaugural maiden voyage. I think it was a lot of fun. Hopefully you guys felt it was too. And I don't know why I should have. This is poor planning on my part, but you know what we should have started this with? You wanted the best, you got the best. And I got the best KISS panel in the vinyl community.
The hottest panel in the world.
Right here.
The hottest KISS panel in the vinyl community.
That's what I'm saying. So I appreciate all you guys coming on. Dylan, the record spinner, Brandon, Mr. Hall of Fame,
Absolutely.
Arnado, Fidelius _frequency, and Felipe, the jazz bum Felipe, same guy. I know it's going to be hard to believe after this comes out, but it's true.
No, I almost put a jazz T-shirt today because on the Jazz Bombs Fridays, I wear my Pro Jam and just to get shit from people.
Awesome. Well, fellas, I don't know when the next incorporation or I guess version of this will come out and what they'll look like, but I think this was a good start, and I think it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, awesome.
All right, guys. Thanks for the time. Take care.
Thanks. Bye, guys.
Yes.
Bye.
Thank you.
We cover it all. We cover it all. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to like, rate, and review. And we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, find us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Vinyl Community Podcasts and on Twitter at VC Pods. See you next time on the Vinyl Community Podcasts.